What is up, YouTube? So I told you we bought a forge, and my wife and I have been building a shed, a little blacksmith shop. It's small, in our yard, so we can put all of the blacksmithing stuff in there. She wanted to name it Dragonfly Forge, so we did that. And this video is going to be making a epic axe door handle. Check it out. So these are some really rough sketches. This is what it will kind of look like. You won't see where the dotted lines are, and that's what the blade will kind of look like when it's done. So the way I'm going to be able to do this without any welding is cutting a slit through the pipe, leaving a back overhang here. That will insert into the pipe and actually be the wedge for the wooden handle you'll hold on to. Then I'll put in 2 screws to hold it. This goes through the door on the other side with another slit, so another piece of metal can go through that and then bolt to the door on the inside. So on the inside it won't look the nicest, but on the outside, acts as a handle without any weld. Next step is to cut out all of the X's, and I'm going to spare you from watching that. So when you buy metal in the store, it comes with what's called weldable primer on most of the steels you'll buy. And when I was taking it off, it wasn't coming off like cleanly, and it was kind of getting a little splotchy. And then I started really looking at it and kind of really liking the look of it. Kind of reminds me of like a Damascus. And since all this stuff is going to sit outside and kind of be battle worn, I kind of like how it looks this way. But now we're moving on to the actual handle portion of this. So now I'm going to cut the threads off of the pipe so it looks like just a steel tube, because that's what it will be. So I cut the slot 1/4 inch wide to fit this piece. One thing that's kind of a bummer, but it's not that big of a deal, is so this fits in like this, and you can see it does not go all the way to the back like I wanted. I guess I should have cut this and brought this to work with me, so I knew how far to grind in this and this edge. But still, not that big of a deal. Now I can mark out my wood and cut the identical slot in that. Alright, so I have the Dremel out. It's actually a little harder to slot the wood than you would think. So right now all I'm doing is running the Dremel down on the wood itself until this gap closes up. So just keep cutting that further and further. Well, after about a half hour on the Dremel, finally that gap is closed up. So like I said, this does not travel all the way through, which is kind of a bummer, but it's not a big deal. Tomorrow night, this is going to be epoxied in, and then I can start drilling my holes through it and putting my pins to hold everything together. So this is what I meant when I said no weld. Everything's going to be held in by mechanical connection. Alright, so right before I left work, I got the socket painted and it hammered black. There is a couple of deep nicks and scratches in them. I'm not really sure where they came from, but it's not that big of a deal. This is meant to sit outside. It's meant to be a war-torn axe, so I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I also got the holes drilled and just some pins kind of just placed in for now. What I have to do now, though, is the one clip you've seen, I put engravings on the side. So my wife has, I might get this wrong and she might get mad at me, but she has Wiccan symbols, ruins, tattooed down her arm. So I actually got a picture of it and engraved the same symbols down, and then I added little moons at the bottom, and I think that's something she'll like. But right now they really don't stand out. So I have 3 options to try to make these stand out. The first one is I burn the handle, and anytime you engrave something into wood and you burn it, that stuff sits, further in, so it doesn't get as dark and it'll stay a little lighter. The other option is to stain it dark, and once again, those will stay a little lighter. And the last resort is getting just something like a white Sharpie. That's a fine point, and running through those lines to really bring up the contrast. So I think the Sharpie trick will be the last thing I do, but I have a test piece of this before I engraved this. Then I think I'm going to start with the burning and then maybe go to the stain. Now, honestly, I can do all three, but let's see if we can liven these up a little bit. So it definitely brought out some life in the wood, but the contrast still isn't there. So I think I'm just going to go with the Sharpie method. So red ended up being the winner, and it don't look too bad. There's a few places that chipped out and had some kind of gouges to it that ruined the design a little bit, but a lot of it is easily readable. And my wife actually just came out into the workshop to talk with me, and obviously she saw what I was doing, so of course it's not a surprise anymore. And she was questioning if I had the little intricate one there. And I'm like, of course, I literally did this from a picture from your arm. But learning now, I've worked with red oak very rarely, but I have worked with it before. But this one is incredibly fibrous, meaning that it is incredibly hard to spot out where those engravings are because the grain itself just looks rough. But got that taken care of. Now I can start assembling. So this is the dry fit up. This is how it's looking. I ended up not having a pin stock for the holes I drilled. My fault. I forgot what size I had. But I brought these home from work that have these little heads on them. Obviously only on one side. But these are actually out of Toyota trucks brake systems. So I usually keep a couple of these in the shop. And I cleaned them up. They originally were that color before sanding them. But I'm already telling you this now. I'm going to do the glue up off camera because this is going to be a pain in the butt to position everything and line up 6 holes to get these through. But let's get it done. So the epoxy is still drying, but I decided to set up a little thing in the vise to show you guys what this will look like when it's mounted to the door. Now, the door has not been built yet, which kind of a bummer. Hopefully this weekend, if not the weekend after. But this is what it's going to look like. So on this side I just have clamps now because until I know the exact thickness of the door, I can't cut the slot for the mounting bracket on the inside. But this is the general premise. This is what it's going to, resemble, that it's stuck in the wood. And I don't know about you, but I think it's looking pretty good. Especially for never doing this before, never trying this before. Pallet wood. The door handle is in. And the door needs some more work, and it's getting painted. Except these top pieces, just these are getting painted. But it's coming along. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and as always, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And if you want to see a different cool project I'm almost done with that I didn't film, and I'm nearly at the end product, stay tuned for the bonus clip. I made some dueling swords. Still have to make a shield to go across them, but for right now they're hanging in here. And I engraved some dragonflies on them.